Hi, I'm Lauren. Welcome back to my craft room. Today I'm sharing a Whimsy Stamps video. It's using some new products, including the Elegant Butterfly and Bendy Border Stamp Set. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to another Whimsy Stamps video. I'm going to be sharing with you how I created this fun pink and purple card using the new Elegant Butterfly red rubber stamp and outline die, as well as the Bendy Borders stamp set and the A2 envelope builder die set. So let's get started with stamping our butterfly. I'm going to be stamping on some mixed media paper because I'm going to be doing some distressing. We're going to do the embossed resist distress technique. And I am stamping my butterfly image with VersaMark. It's a sticky ink that will allow me to emboss with it using some embossing powder. So I've stamped it in my MISTI so I can stamp twice to make sure I have lots of ink and good coverage. It's kind of hard to see a clear ink on white paper. I'm using some detail white embossing powder so I can really make sure that my image is nice and clean and clear when I use my heat gun to emboss the image. And once my image is embossed, it's basically just melting down that powder that has little bits of plastic in it, and that creates that embossed look. I'm going to use my outline die to die cut this image out. Now, it takes me a little bit here because, again, white on white is hard to see, but I get my die lined up right where it needs to go, and then I'm going to use some of my mint tape. It's just a repositional tape to hold that in place as I run it through my die cut machine. So now that it's die cut, I'm bringing out pink and purple colors for my Distress Oxide collection. You can see the colors listed down below along with all of the supplies I used to make this card. And I'm going to start with the pink in the center. I want it to kind of fade out into the purple along the edges of my butterfly wings. So I'm just using a distress brush and getting in there with that pink ink until I'm happy with it. And then I will pick up the purple ink and work my way towards the center of the butterfly. So now I have that vibrant purple along the edges, that vibrant pink in the middle, and then I'm going to blend in between the two colors once I'm done adding the purple. I want to make sure there is a nice transition between the two colors. And normally I would edit this out because you don't need to see me use a brush for 3 minutes, but I wanted you to see to make sure you understood how I combine the two colors. So now that those are done, I'm going to use my distress sprayer, spray onto my butterfly, and then pick up the excess water with a towel. And then I'm going to rub over the embossed image with that towel to make sure there's no ink and give that vibrancy back to my white embossed image. So this is the emboss resist technique because my embossing resisted the ink. Now that my butterfly is done and so beautiful, I'm going to set it aside and work on my background. I really love this new Bendy Borders stamp set. There are so many options, but my favorite of all the borders is this twinkly star one. It kind of makes me think of fairy dust. I don't know why, it just is so beautiful. So I'm going to just use the longest clear block that I have in my stash, and I'm going to wrap my border around it, and I'm going to use those same inks. So I'm starting with my purple Distress Oxide, and I'm going to stamp my border, and I'm going to stamp it along the edge of my white cardstock, and I'm going to repeat this process I believe a total of 4 or 5 times, and each time I stamp, I rotate the stamp so that way it's the other way, and it will give a little bit more diversity in how it's stamped, so it doesn't look like it's the exact same thing repeating over and over again. So now that I've stamped my stamp a total of 4 times, if I'm counting my rows correctly, I moved on to the pink. So my colors, if I remember correctly, are Seedless Preserves, Kitsch Flamingo, and now Spun Sugar for the top, but I again have everything down below, so if I said any of those wrong, you can get the correct list in the description of the video. Now to add some splatter, because I love adding this look to my backgrounds, I'm squeezing some or squishing some ink onto my little plastic extra piece here and then spritzing on some water, then using a paintbrush to pick up that ink and create a splatter look on my background. Since it's the same purple I used, it just really keeps that consistent color from the background to the butterfly. I also need to add some shine to my card, so I'm just using this shimmery clear liquid and splattering that onto my background, and there it is done. So I'm going to set it aside to dry. Now I layered over my butterfly just to see how it would look, and I wanted to break up the color a little bit, so I'm going to pick out this pink paper and that will be the background. It's not perfectly matching my pinks, but it's close enough, and I think it will add some more brightness to the card. So this is going to be my background, and then I also off camera die cut an oval of vellum because I felt that my butterfly and my background needed a little bit of something in between to break up the patterns. So I also have die cut an oval off camera. So now that my background is adhered to my card, I just used the corner of my MISTI to make sure that it was perfectly placed onto my card base since they were the same size. Now I want my background to hurry up and finish drying, so I'm using my heat gun to help speed that along because I am an impatient crafter and I want to keep going. So I'm also going to use my towel to pick up any excess water. I'm going to trim off a 1/2 inch from the bottom, which is the purple sparkly side, as well as a 1/2 inch off of one of the sides. So that way I can have a nice 1/4 inch border all the way around my background, and you can see that pink paper pop through there on the edges. So now I can start gluing everything together. There's that vellum oval I was talking about, and my butterfly will go on top of that. So I'm going to go ahead and directly glue my background to my card base, and then I'm going to pop up my butterfly. So before I glue down my vellum circle, I'm going to pop up that butterfly, and that will let me know where I can apply glue to the vellum because we don't want any glue peeking out of the vellum in spots we don't want it to show. So I've used my grid mat to help me glue that sparkly background to my card base, and now I'm going to use my vellum as a guide of where I can add some dimensional pieces here, some foam dimension behind my butterfly. I set my vellum to the center of my card, just holding it there for me to see the center of the card, and then I have already pulled up all the release paper from those dimension pieces, and I secured the butterfly down to the vellum. So now I can pick up that piece and add glue to the vellum just behind the butterfly, and that way it will be secured to the card but won't show any glue once it's adhered. I hope that made sense. You can see it here on the screen, so I hope that you understood what the heck I was talking about. So I let my MISTI sit on top of my card, and I did edit out. It was there a lot longer than a few seconds to make sure that there was pressure to glue everything together. I got out some iridescent sequins to glue around my butterfly to add some more shine, and they have more of a pink hue to them, so it really blends in well with the card. And now I want to work on a sentiment. I'm not sure what I'm going to give this as, so I wanted to pick a sentiment that was celebratory, that could be used for a birthday or any other celebratory event. And then I am matching it up with its corresponding die. So these are both known as the simple sentiment strips. So there is a stamp set and a die, so you can have a die that will perfectly cut out around your sentiment. So I found the matching ones. I went ahead and just twisted it apart, and you could also use some wire cutters to cut them apart. And I'm going to die cut my strip out of some mixed media paper. I've got my clear block, and I'm going to also emboss resist my sentiment so it matches the inside of my butterfly. So I use some powder to make sure that I don't have any extra cling of the embossing powder to my paper in areas I don't want it to cling to. And I'm stamping my sentiment using, again, that VersaMark sticky ink. I'm using using my white detail ink again to emboss my sentiment. I really like using detail embossing powders for small images like this sentiment because I want to make sure that once it's embossed you can actually read it. And then I'm using my heat gun and my tweezers to melt that embossing powder down. And this time I'm just going to use my purple, that Seedless Preserves, to distress my sentiment here. I didn't really want to go into too much detail for this tiny little strip. So I'm adding color, just being careful not to get my fingerprints all over it. And then I will bring out my towel again and wipe off that ink on the sentiment. And it's really obvious here when I wipe it. I just think it's so great. I love this technique. So I have my sentiment strip ready to go. I'm just going to use this thin foam adhesive to adhere it to my card. So I cut a piece off. I'm going to apply it to the back of my strip and then pull off that release paper. And I thought it would look really great on the center of my butterfly. So bringing some of that purple in towards the center of the butterfly just helps it stand out, but yet still match everything on the card. So I've adhered that down as straight as I can using my grid mat to help, and here is my final card. So now I want to jump into how I made an envelope for this card. So I have the two main pieces from the envelope A2 Builder die set, and this creates the front and back of my envelope. I have this piece of 12 by 12 paper that I've had, I don't even know how long, from the days where I thought I would be a scrapbooker and am not. So I just cut them to fit around my dies so that way I could run it through my die cut machine. And now I am folding along those score lines for both pieces. So the front part just has that one flap, and then the back has two flaps on the side, as well as the flap that closes the envelope. So just using my bone folder to help reinforce those score lines. And now I'm going to adhere my envelope together. So I'm using some sticky tape and I'm placing it onto the flap for the front piece, and I'm going to carefully line this up. And of course I completely misalign it the first time and the second time when it accidentally stuck. So just, you know, be patient with yourself and you'll eventually get it right like I did the third time. And it did peel up some of my paper on the inside, but you know what? No one's gonna see it because it's inside of an envelope. Now I'm gonna add some adhesive to the flap that attaches to those small flaps, so just on the edges there. And then I'm gonna pick away the excess glue that accidentally stuck out. And there is my envelope for my card, again sticking with that pink theme, and you can see it slides very nicely inside even though my card has dimension. And that is my card and envelope tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I hope you'll click that like button, and if you're new to my channel and would like to see more, I hope you'll hit that subscribe. Thank you again so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.